Welcome to the Marketing Impact Podcast with your host, Mike Wood from Legalmorning.com, providing tips and the latest trends in the world of marketing.
And welcome to the Marketing Impact Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Wood from Legalmorning.com. Today we're going to be talking about domain names, speaking of Legalmorning.com. More specifically, we're going to be talking about branded domain names and some of the new domain extensions that are out there available for you or your business. Now, my guest today is Mike Zappy. For those who aren't familiar, we're just going to call you Zappy. Is that okay, Mike?
That sounds great. Yep.
Okay.
Too many mics out there.
Exactly. Now, he is basically the domain name pioneer. He has helped develop and market some of the most common branded domain names here. Now, I know some people out there are thinking domain squatting. This is not domain squatting. Domain squatting is when you're buying another brand domain name. Zappy has basically developed domain names such as music.com, beer.com, computer.com, creditcards.com, basically just about any type of branded domain name. We're not talking about buying General Motors and sitting on it. We're talking about working with these type of companies that want these domain names outside of their normal business name. He is also the developer of the e-business course at Harvard Business School, documentary filmmaker, so he's got quite a bit of experience under his belt. How are you doing today, Zappy?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to share some knowledge and be tuned into what you guys are up to, because I think it's super important. And, you know, the fact that any business of any size has to pay attention to their branding, their online presence, and protecting their brand and all these things. What you're talking about is, you know, relevant whether you're a single entrepreneur or you're running a Fortune 500 company. You probably should be hearing your podcast right now.
Absolutely, and I appreciate you coming on. I really do. I was looking for quite a few people, and you just kept coming up every time I was doing the search. So, and small businesses even. You know, there's a lot of companies that have expanded and gone, you know, national or international, and they've had to do a rebranding. So it's even important if you're a small business to make sure that you choose a great domain name in the beginning, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, over the last, 15 plus years that I've been working in the domain space and developing internet properties, one of the things that, you know, I would always hear along the way was, you know, domain names are going to change. They're not going to be as important. They're not going to, you know, be needed because of search and, you know, the depth that you're going to be able to search, and businesses are going to, you know, go mobile and all this stuff. But what really happened is, similar to the 1-800 phone number, the domains became valuable because they have a certain level of their own credibility that comes with them. And that credibility is not only understood implicitly by consumers, but also by Google and other search engines as they make determinations about who to, you know, rank and who to present, who's credible. So what I think is the most important thing for any business is that they, whatever domain strategy that they have, and brand protection strategy and conversion strategy, social media strategy, that they kind of go for whatever the best things that they can get are, because it's not just about being found anymore, because there's all kinds of people that have different techniques for, you know, having themselves found in a business directory or in search or something like that. But once you get somebody to your site, now you have to convert them, and that conversion rate, you know, could be the live or die glory or, you know, flame out of the business. And what has happened is that the domain's credibility means that if, for example, and I'm taking this as a real example from my experience with insurancequotes.com, where we started with a domain name and said, hey, you know what? This is a good category, because if somebody types in insurance, well, that's an amazing somebody to get. And I wish I had insurance.com, but it was long gone. It was a big business. But insurancequotes.com was, if somebody knew what the word quote meant, that was key word, that they might be a better prospect than somebody who puts in just insurance. So by specifying and having a domain name like insurancequotes.com, not only was it more specific, but you knew that this was probably a better qualified person, which meant that we had with insurance quotes a very high percentage, like 40% of the people who came to our homepage would fill out the free form to get insurance. And
wow.
if we had been, zappiesinsurance.com or, usinsurance.org or insurancerates.uk, whatever other thing we were, we would not have had the credibility with the consumer where they say, okay, I searched for insurance quotes. I saw, Aetna and Geico and Progressive and State Farm and the General. I saw all these, but here's insurancequotes.com. Maybe that's a place I can do my due diligence, and it has credibility in my mind because they have better things to do than just, stealing my identity. So I'm going to click on it. They click on it now. I got them to click. Now I have the credibility of giving them the information. Now they don't have to back out and go search 5 more insurance sites because I did a good enough job giving them what they wanted and having them the credibility for them to say, okay, I'm going to put my information in here because I trust this site. And I think that conversion rate is so important, and the reason that when somebody's going to make a decision in half a second about whether they trust you or whether they should click on you or off of you, the more credibility you have, the better. And the domain is a very, very cost-effective way to have credibility. And so that's why you're seeing even today, domain names of high quality in good areas, good product categories going for millions and millions of dollars, because it's not just about being found anymore. It's about the credibility to convert. And I think
Absolutely.
that's a critical aspect, even more today than it was even in the past, which is amazing. 17 years later.
I mean, conversion is what you want. I mean, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter who comes to your website. It matters who converts into a customer. So even if a 40% rate is unheard of. 4% would be great. 40% is just unbelievable, even if you're just collecting email addresses or contacts.
Absolutely.
And for those listening, I'm glad you brought up insurance.com, because a lot of domain names, when they're sold, are sold in private sales. You don't hear how much they cost or how much they were paid. But insurance.com, I believe, is still one of the top selling domains of all time. I think it was around like 35 million, something like that, just for the domain. And it's really important for people to know, too, is when they say, we're going to have search engine optimization, and Legalmorning.com doesn't say what I do, but that's a different story for another time. It basically, your search engine optimization includes your domain name. You said, if I'm looking at if I want a car insurance quote and I look at insurance.com and insurancequote.com, I'm probably going to choose insurance quote, because to me, insurance.com tells me that's where I can buy insurance. And I don't want to buy insurance right now. I want to find the cheapest insurance first. So,
And one thing I would add to that, Mike, is that Google and the other search engines are based on some of the same intelligence, which is that if I own insurancequotes.com, instead of, let's say, leading into your discussion about new extensions, well, if I own insurance.guru or insurance.biz or insurance. Policy or whatever new extension, that extension might only cost me a few dollars to have that domain name. So the consumer goes, well, whoever has this insurancequotes.guru, maybe it costs them $15 to have that. But if they rip off my identity and then they change to a different domain name like bestinsurancequotes.tv, then maybe that's what they do. But if I have insurancequotes.com, you're like, you know what? They probably have better things to do with their time than just stealing my identity. So I'm going to put my information in there. And that's a very, again, kudos to domains and .coms for, representing something you could trust, like an 800 number. You know, when somebody calls you from 855 or 857 or 877, you're like, who is this? But if somebody calls you from an 800 number, or you're presented an 800 number on television or in advertising, you think to yourself, well, you know, at least I know where to find them, and I know that they've spent money to, you know, have this platform. So I assume that they're just not, you know, the lowest common denominator, which is why, like you said, you'd love to have a 4% conversion, and we had a 40%. So as a result of that, like you said, it's not public information, but Bankrate bought insurancequotes.com from us, and a big part of that had to do with, you know, that we were able to generate organic traffic, but also the fact that the conversion rates were off the charts.
Absolutely. And it's worth actually paying extra for domain names if you can go to a domain sale, or if you're, you know, lucky enough to find it without having to go to a domain sale or auction or something like that. It still could be worth paying the extra money for that. I mean, in fact, I just pulled up the list, and insurance.com does still sit at the top, but I mean, here's some other one: vacation rentals, you know, privatejet.com, internet.com, fun.com, hotels.com, business.com, there's beer.com right there. You know, these are some of the websites where it's worth paying this money, because they could go 10 years to make up what they could get in 1 year from that type of conversion rate. You know, a 10-time conversion rate is just unbelievable. And then the next year is going to be all profit on top of that. So, you know, it's a numbers game, but it's very, very important that you pick a great domain name. Now, what would you suggest for somebody? You know, we're just starting out a business. What would you suggest? I mean, what are some of the factors they need to look at, I guess, in order to pick the best domain name for their business?
You know, I think, again, you have to budget maybe a little bit from your marketing budget, from your branding budget, from your differentiation budget, from your conversion rate bucket. I mean, all these things, it's worth getting whatever it is. So even if you're a small business, if you can, you know, register something for yourself, great. If you need to buy something, great. You know, do it, because, you know, to the point that we're making here, it's all about, you know, being more effective in your business and having the credibility that you deserve. So even if you're, let's say, New York City dentist.com, the power of that, similar to being insurancequotes.com or Houston chiropractor, whatever it is, whatever the category, you are getting that person who's searching for that term prior to them looking at brands. So if somebody comes to insurance, if somebody types in progressive insurance, it's too late to get them and convert them probably. You're probably late, but if they search insurance quotes and they're pre-brand, or you search beer.com to see, you know, how to brew beer, or check out something about beer, or see what's going on in the beer world. When we had it, the concept was that if you were into beer.com, you were influenceable as it related to what brand you might choose and what lifestyle you might like within the beer. If the person already typed in, you know, Labatt.com, well, it's too late maybe for some other beer company to affect them, because they're already, shown that they're prone towards some brands. So owning the domain in your category for your business is super important too, because it's going to give you that pre-brand moment to entice somebody into working with you or buying your product, as opposed to trying to get them after it's too late when you've already identified with some other brand specific in your category.
Got it. Now, I wonder if Jimmy Wales will be willing to sell me wikipedia.org, but I probably highly doubt that. So let's get into brand name or the domain name extensions, because this came out recently, and I think a lot of people are still confused about what it is, how it applies, and how they can best use it. Can you go into that for us a little bit?
Yes. So the new domain extensions have been going on for years and years. There's been .tv, .biz, .us. They've brought out these new domain extensions. And then a couple of years ago, they decided to really open it up. And if you want to spend a few $100,000 a year, you could have your own extension, which could be, .friend, .america, .photo, whatever you want to have as your extension, you could have as an extension. And the interesting thing about this is they always said that they were doing this to expand a pool of good domains that were available for business. And the interesting thing is that if you look at the penetration of .com being number one by a long shot and having the credibility factor that we've been talking about, it has value. And then some of the .orgs and .nets, some of those, they have credibility value. But the newer domains, in order to get somebody to understand that they have to type in, whatever it is, .friend or whatever it is, .guru instead of .com, .net, whatever, it's something that you have to condition people with millions and tens and hundreds of millions of dollars, like you've been conditioned with .com along the way. So it's not an overnight thing where you could be MikeWood.friends and have that extension and everybody's just going to know that they should type in .friend instead of .com or something else. So there's a real education process that has to happen for these domain names to have value. And similarly, like we talked about with the search engines, they have, limited credibility with the search engines. The search engines accept that a .guru extension does exist, but they also know that if you wanted to set up insurance.guru and credit card.guru and all these different things, it's something less than safe, or maybe doing something, negative in business. And domain name, they're not giving it the same score in their algorithm as they do something that's aged, like an 800 phone number. So it would be like making still these determinations. And from a credibility standpoint, as I saw these other domains, say .com, .net, .org that started out, when I saw these other extensions, I thought, it's going to be really difficult for .co or .us or .biz to get people to start using those extensions because they have to be conditioned to do it. And the only one that I always thought, had the possibility would be, say, .tv, where if all the all TV networks and so forth, banded together and said, hey, let's put our schedules and everything on .tv and that'll be our thing. They're the only ones, that could probably do that and have the media to do it. The fact that they didn't do it and .tv didn't, people aren't really aware of what even a .tv is, that it's a stretch to think that they're going to, in any time soon, understand what a .guru or .friend or whatever it is, wood furniture. They just don't understand it yet as it's set, and they don't probably trust it yet, nor do the search engines. So I think it's something to, consider going into the future in the same way that you had to evaluate years and years ago whether you should be buying .tvs or .cos or all these other extensions like that came out before, but were never able to, make a significant impact in the number of domains that were owned or registered compared to .coms and .net and .orgs. And, I suggest that your audience just, keep in mind, like the 1-800 number, when you get a call from a 1-800 number, that means something to you. When you get an 855 something, you're kind of thinking, geez, maybe this is one of those automated, voice things that's about to go on.
Maybe they want my credit card number. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Or, I've gotten some inheritance from, a foreign leader or something.
What's the name? Because I have a foreign leader that has a lot of money that's been trying to send it to me as well.
Exactly.
We could be related there, Zappy.
Yeah.
Mike and Mike.
God,
yeah.
What a coincidence. It could be a fortune waiting for us. Yeah, no, But that's I think the power of the domain space, and whether you're a one-man band or a Fortune 500 company, you have to strategically think about what your domain strategy is and try to use those things to, take your piece of the market share, because it's totally available to you. Some, people are probably typing in whatever it is that you do professionally. There's probably a bunch of people typing that in, looking for that type of professional or that type of service. So if you can, insert yourself in that moment of decision making, it's an unbelievable place to be, and it's also one of the most cost-effective places to be.
Okay, excellent. Well, thank you for coming on today, Zappy. Now, I give all guests the last word. You get 1 minute to say whatever you want to the audience. And like always, as long as you're not cursing, I won't cut you off.
All right. No. I would say, I just want to mention the fact that for the last, few years, I've been working on this documentary film with Deepak Chopra and the actress Michelle Rodriguez, and it's called The Reality of Truth, and it's coming out pretty soon, and it's about the importance of going inside your mind for answers and healing, and making sure you take the time to through whatever means necessary, be that meditation, breathing, natural plants, whatever techniques. It's important to go inside your mind, because that is where, a lot of the answers and creativity and healing are. And so excited to bring that out and share that with your audience. And that's it. I'm just psyched to have been on the show too, because I've been watching you progress, and I'm excited to be involved.
No, it was really great having you on today. I think it was very valuable information on the domain names. It's still a confusing topic for a lot of people, especially just getting into it. But I think you addressed a lot of questions and the importance of having a branded domain name. So it was great having you on. I'm going to have a link to the information you just talked about as well. I'm going to make sure I put that on the website so people can find it. Just go to legalmorning.com, click on the podcast tab, and you can find the blog post for this one here. You can just type in Zappy, or you can always email me and say, hey, who was the domain guy you were talking to, and I'll gladly put you in touch for anything needed. But really appreciate you having or coming on today, Zappy. Again, I think it's some valuable information.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, and until next time, this is Mike Wood from Legalmorning.com.
Thanks for listening to the Marketing Impact Podcast. For a copy of the information from this podcast, please go to legalmorning.com and click the podcast tab. Until next time.